Good evening. Tonight, an exclusive investigation into what federal agents are calling the ghost system.
31 officers, 17 months of investigation, and the man they called El Arquitecto, the architect who designed a parallel system answering to the cartel, not the Constitution.
The badge hit the table like a verdict. DEA Special Agent in charge, Marcus Holland, stared at the photograph, a Phoenix police lieutenant in uniform, shaking hands with a known Sinaloa cartel courier outside a truck stop on Interstate 10, time-stamped, geotagged, undeniable. Then the second photo landed, a judge's signature on a dismissed trafficking case. Then a third, a state senator's account number printed on a cartel ledger. 31 law enforcement officers, one network, and one man behind all of it. This moment ended a 17-month investigation, and what they found in the first 10 minutes would expose a parallel system running beneath Arizona law enforcement. If you believe cartels infiltrating law enforcement deserve federal prosecution, tap like now and comment exposed. 3:52 a.m. Greater Phoenix metro area, Arizona. You need to understand the scale before a single door was kicked in. Over 17 months, a Sinaloa cartel fentanyl cell buried itself so deeply into the arteries of Greater Phoenix that investigators called it the ghost system. It didn't hide from infrastructure. It became infrastructure. Trucking routes along Interstate 10 and Interstate 17, logistics warehouses registered as agricultural supply companies, refrigerated freight moving fentanyl pills alongside actual produce shipments. By the time federal command authorized the raid, the network had moved an estimated $84 million in narcotics across 14 counties. 320 suspects were flagged for simultaneous arrest, and somewhere inside a Phoenix field office, an encrypted server held a file labeled only Architect. Nobody knew what was in it yet. Type Architect if you're ready to see what they found. Here's what they did know. Someone inside law enforcement had been feeding convoy routes to the cartel for at least 10 months. Raid schedules, safe corridor windows, evidence suppression timelines. The leak was surgical, professional, and it hadn't been found yet. 3 questions hung over the entire operation as agents staged in the pre-dawn dark. Who built this network? Who was protecting it from the inside? And what was in the Architect file? 3:52 a.m., 7 locations, simultaneous breach. The flashbangs came first, sharp white cracks splitting the Arizona dark like lightning with nowhere to go. FBI breach teams hit a logistics warehouse off I-10 South, while DEA tactical units flooded a residential compound in suburban Mesa. ICE strike teams moved on a distribution hub disguised as a furniture import business near Tempe. 3 more SWAT elements converged on stash houses in Glendale, Chandler, and Peoria. And 50 miles north, a 7th team descended on what property records listed as a private ranch. What it actually was would take another hour to understand. Suspects bolted. One tried to destroy a laptop by drowning it in a sink. Another lit a duffel bag on fire in a warehouse corridor. 2.6 tons of fentanyl pills, 940 kilograms of cocaine, $6.2 million in bundled cash, and a weapons cache that made seasoned agents stop and stare. 41 military-grade assault rifles, 8 RPGs, and body armor stenciled with a fake Phoenix PD unit designation. That body armor, that detail, right there, that's what changed everything, because someone had to have provided those unit markings, someone with departmental access. And that's when Agent Holland understood. The leak wasn't just logistical, it was structural. If you think that's the whole story, the next discovery is going to shock you. 11:47 a.m. FBI Cyber Command, Phoenix Field Division. 8 hours after the breach, 4 analysts were staring at screens that showed something that looked less like a cartel operation and more like a corporation. The operation had a name, Project Desert Shield, and at its center was one man, Miguel Cordero, known in Sinaloa networks by a single word, El Arquitecto, the architect. Cordero hadn't touched drugs in 18 years. He didn't need to. He was the architecture, the financial brain who turned a fentanyl trafficking cell into a franchise distribution empire. Warysen, shell companies absorbed cartel cash and routed it through 4 restaurant chains, a regional construction firm, and 3 registered nonprofits operating in the Phoenix metro area. From there, money moved offshore through layered accounts in financial gray zones. clean, documented, tax filed. Type El Arquitecto if you see the sophistication. One analyst, a 32-year-old, named only in court documents as Agent EM, reportedly pushed back from her keyboard, hands trembling, and called her supervisor. Her exact words, "This isn't organized crime. This is an org chart." But then the architect file cracked open and the room went quiet in a way that had nothing to do with professionalism. Mikey, the file contained 31 names, badge numbers, payroll accounts, meeting coordinates, every one of them connected to law enforcement. One name sat at the top of the list, a Phoenix police lieutenant with 22 years of service and a commendation for anti-trafficking work hanging on his office wall. The leak had a face. But El Arquitecto wasn't working alone at the top. The architect file had a second layer, someone with federal security clearance, someone the cartel called El Sombra. The shadow, guess who it was? The answer is 60 seconds away, 6:14 a.m. Joint Task Force Command Center, Phoenix. The digital map on the command wall looked like a constellation of red stars. 51 active target sites spread across the greater Phoenix area and into surrounding counties. The joint operation mobilized 1,500 federal agents, 74 SWAT teams, 18 Black Hawk helicopters, DEA tactical units, and ICE strike teams staged at 5 coordinated entry points. What followed was the largest single-day law enforcement operation in Arizona history. Comment largest ever if this scale shocks you. A fentanyl super lab hidden inside a temperature-controlled agricultural facility outside Buckeye, capable of producing 500 kilograms per week. Breached, neutralized, and destroyed. A luxury compound in Paradise Valley registered to a logistics LLC yielded 6 senior cartel cell leaders, $1.4 million in cash, and encrypted phones still receiving incoming messages from Sinaloa handlers. Riggs, a border tunnel entry point 85 miles south, was simultaneously mapped and collapsed, and in a trafficking transit house in South Phoenix, 58 victims, men, women, and 4 children, were escorted into the cold morning air by agents who for a moment forgot they were supposed to stay professional. By noon, the total seizure stood at 10.7 tons of narcotics, $78 million in seized assets, 320 arrests, 107 firearms, 17 armored cartel vehicles. Then, the last server decrypted. The operation was a success. The task force commander told federal partners that afternoon, "The network is dismantled." He was wrong. And here's where I need you to focus, because this is where it gets terrifying. Type 10.7 tons if this seizure shocks you. The final server didn't reveal more cartel logistics. It revealed El Sombra, not a corrupt street cop, not a municipal judge, a mid-level federal logistics coordinator, embedded inside a Department of Homeland Security contracting office. Fictional identity cleared as Agent Ryan Mitchell in sealed court filings, who had spent 4 years quietly routing federal freight inspection schedules to Cordero's team. Safe corridor windows, inspection-free lanes, real-time alerts when federal surveillance assets reposition. Mitchell hadn't been recruited by force. He'd been recruited with $2.8 million in staggered offshore payments over 38 months. His access wasn't dramatic, it was administrative, and that administrative access was worth more to the Sinaloa cell than any weapon in any warehouse. This wasn't a few bad apples, Holland would later tell the Joint Federal Oversight Briefing. This was a parallel system, a second force, one that answered to the cartel, not the Constitution. The arrest sweep that followed wasn't a perp walk. It was an autopsy. 27 police officers, 9 Border Patrol agents, 5 judges, 14 state legislators, badges removed in hallways, handcuffs on men who had sworn oaths. A deputy sheriff watched his sergeant, someone he'd worked with for 8 years, walked out of a precinct in cuffs. He didn't speak for the rest of the shift. Comment parallel system if you see this as infrastructure, not crime. Miguel El Arquitecto Cordero was arrested at a private airfield outside Scottsdale, Arizona, attempting to board a chartered flight to Mexico. Federal marshals had the airfield surrounded before he reached the runway. He surrendered without incident, wearing civilian clothes and carrying a laptop he'd apparently believed was clean. It wasn't. 320 cartel members in custody, 31 officers charged, $84 million in assets frozen. The network was gone. The Greater Phoenix corridor was clear. Or so they thought, because the last file recovered from Cordero's laptop, the one his own team hadn't finished uploading before his arrest, contained franchise documentation, operational templates, encrypted onboarding packets, 4 more states, 4 more cells, already operational, identical architecture, same shell company structures, same law enforcement penetration blueprint, same architect template, renamed and relocated. Cordero hadn't built a cartel network. He built a model, and he'd already sold it. Type franchise model if you understand the bigger threat. They didn't just infiltrate the system, a senior FBI analyst summarized in the classified debrief. They redesigned it, and shutting down Phoenix just showed us how many franchises were already opened. In Arizona alone last year, 2,900 people died of overdoses. 69% of those deaths involved fentanyl traced to logistics corridors, identical to the ones dismantled in this operation. Somewhere in those numbers is a mother's daughter who bought what she thought was Xanax and didn't wake up. Somewhere is a family that never got a warning, a recall notice, or a reason. 58 victims were rescued in this operation. Investigators believe more than 240 remain unaccounted for. An honest sergeant from a Phoenix precinct, speaking to federal debriefers after the arrests, said only this: "We have to rebuild what they hollowed out. That's going to take longer than the investigation did. This is not just a crime story. This is a blueprint. It happened here. It's happening elsewhere. And power doesn't always need violence. Sometimes it just needs silence and one architect who never touches the product." Comment blueprint if you see the systemic threat. Now here's what you need to understand. This Phoenix operation, this is part of a much larger pattern. If you watched our video on the Atlanta charity raid, where we exposed Horizon Relief Foundation moving $520 million through fake nonprofits, you saw the same shell company structure Cordero used here. Different city, same blueprint. If you watched our Chicago O'Hare investigation, where we showed how General Marcus Webb designed Terminal 5's pre-clearance system to move 11.2 tons of narcotics, you saw the same federal infiltration Mitchell replicated in Phoenix. These aren't separate stories. They're chapters in the same book, a franchise model spreading across America. Atlanta had Horizon Relief, Chicago had Silent Gateway, Phoenix had Desert Shield, and the architect file recovered from Cordero's laptop. It references 4 more cities already operational. One of them is a major port city on the Gulf Coast. Another is a Midwest transportation hub you wouldn't expect. The third is operating out of a mountain state with almost no cartel presence on record. And the fourth, that one connects back to someone we exposed in our Minneapolis judicial corruption investigation. The one where Judge Michael Barrett was on the Sinaloa payroll for 5 years. Type "I'm connecting the dots" if you're starting to see the pattern. That's it. If you made it this far, you're seeing what most people scroll past. Tap like so this story reaches more people who need to hear it. Comment expose if you want these investigations brought into the light. And here's what I need you to do next. Go back and watch our Atlanta Horizon Relief video, then watch the Chicago O'Hare operation, then come back here. Because when you see all 3 together, you'll understand this isn't about cartels infiltrating cities. It's about cartels redesigning American infrastructure, city by city, network by network, using the same playbook. The franchise model Cordero built, the next cell it connects to is operating out of a city where federal oversight is almost non-existent. That investigation drops Friday, and the name we found in the architect file? You've heard it before in one of our previous videos. I won't say which one, but if you've been paying attention, you'll know exactly who I'm talking about the moment you see the evidence.